If you're receiving this transmission, you are the resistance, declaring war on the New World Order. TruthRadioShow.com. Dan Bidondi for Infowars.com, and I'm standing right next to a legit relative of Captain John Parker. And how you doing, sir?
I'm doing excellent. All things considered, I marched for Sudbury Militia this morning, starting at 6 a.m. down at Sudbury Center. We marched the Old North Bridge and fired 3 volleys in honor of the founders of Sudbury and my relatives over there, David Howe and David Howe Jr. And now I'm over here at Lexington trying to honor my Parker relatives. Captain John Parker would either be a cousin or an uncle. I'm not quite sure. I don't have that right. But I know that Uncle Jonas Parker was the first Patriot killed on the Battle Green, and he was bayoneted. And he had famous words of, I will not run from the redcoat tyrants. And the last person he spoke to was my direct ancestor, was Corporal Ebenezer Parker. Yes, so that's what I'm doing. And I told you about Ebenezer Monroe. He had given an account back in 1814 about who he thought fired the first shot, and he thought it was Pitcairn. I don't know if all I know is I don't think any of the Patriots would have fired first, because they were under the command of Captain John Parker, who had a huge amount of experience in the French and Indian War, was revered in the church. He was a deacon in the church, as well as Corporal Ebenezer Parker. Both Parkers were deacons in Reverend Jonas Clark's congregation. So.
Right, and we're standing right in front of the Minuteman Tavern, Buckman's Tavern, exactly where this was conspired to say, hey, you know what, the British are coming, let's defend this land here.
Oh, yeah, they had gathered around here early in the morning, probably 2 a.m., because they had been warned by Revere and Dawes, and they had told Sam Adams and John Hancock, who were up at the Clark Hancock house to get out of town. They thought they'd be coming right away, so a lot of these guys dispersed, and then they had to come back. So they came back probably 4:30, 5 o'clock, just before the time was, the guys came running up and told them that they were just down the street. So they were a little bit taken aback, because they had been here once, came back, so it was kind of a ragtag. But they had 77 Patriot militia against a force of 700 from the King's troops.
So it was a 10-to-1 scenario, and being a relative of theirs and being a reenactor yourself, you want to describe what would it felt like to stand, knowing your odds of 10-to-1, but the patriotism and the guts it took to stand against those people?
Yeah, they were of hardy stock for sure. I mean, to be defiant is a treasonous act against the king, obviously. And so here you've got maybe 10% of the people willing to probably do that, and probably even less percent of maybe 3 or 5% that actually will stand up. Now, they weren't thinking that they were going to fire on anybody, and only a couple guys did fire on them. Most of the guys, there were 8 people got killed on the green. They were hit in the back. But they did not let go of their arms, because that's what the Brits wanted them to do, said, disperse, lay down your arms. But no, I mean, they swore an oath to defend home and family against all tyrants and intruders, whatever. So that's probably why they get shot in the back. They're not going to drop their firearms.
So
right.
The British were coming basically to arrest Samuel Adams, if I'm not correct, and also take the guns.
Right, yes. Their ultimate, they really wanted to take the guns out of Concord. They had heard that the assault weapons were, commandeered by Colonel Barrett and others in Concord. So that was their ultimate goal. I mean, they had been spying and learned about the committees of safety, and they knew what was out there through this act, and they were a little upset because when they got there, they didn't find it too much. I mean, they found powder, and then they started torching the carriages, the wooden carriages. So while that was all going on, all the activity going on at the Concord Bridge, so all those patriots from Acton and Concord thought that they were burning their town down. So that's what kicked off, and the guys, Isaac Davis, or it was Major Buttrick, said, for God's sakes, fire, guys, they're firing at us. And they didn't think, they thought they were going to shoot blanks at them. So then that's where they said, all right, guys, time to take them out. So that was the real start.
So make a stand. You see this going on today, very similar things that we faced back 240 years ago. You see that we're facing almost the same stuff now today?
Yeah, there's a definite attack on our liberties, involved in spying on us, kind of like what they were doing back then. Crazy, if you're speaking for the Constitution, you're thought of as not too highly. It's like, wait a minute, this is a law. You folks in charge of the government, you swore an oath. So if you violate that, you're guilty of treason. So anytime that there's a violation, and I put that out there on my different social media sites. I mean, if you're violating the law, you're lawless, and you need to be removed from office at the least. Absolutely. Yeah.
Now your thoughts. Now we got the MIAC report, Homeland Security's documents and all that, stating, telling local law enforcement agencies that patriots, militia members, local state militia members are potentially dangerous and terrorists, and pose more of a threat than Al Qaeda, believe it or not, and also returning veterans too are on that list.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of crazy, and they're saying that to people that are my friends. The local police. Those guys I support 100%. I mean, guys I used to play baseball with, and guys I played golf with. So, I mean, it behooves all of us to support local police, state police, anybody that's going to defend the thin blue line between anarchy and sanity in our government. I mean, really, it's just it's getting crazy. People. They walk around. A lot of people are learning. They're learning, but there's still quite a few that you tell them, and I was like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "Are you get your eyes open? Are you paying attention to what's going on here?" I mean, you got to get your sources too. I mean, a lot of people listen to just mainstream media, and mainstream media doesn't cover what's going on. I mean, I did a reenactment of the 225th anniversary of the signing of the Constitution. Do you know how many people, how many press, I called different news agencies and newspapers, you know how many people covered that event? Absolutely zero. Unbelievable. This was in Philadelphia at Independence Mall. It just boggles the mind. But then I said, well, all right, so what is this? Who controls the media? You try to get something of truth in the media, in the mainstream media, it's a hard sell, a very hard sell. Yeah. For sure.
And that's why we're independent, alternative media. We like to cover the truth, especially American history. We love, and we don't like anything censored. I mean, you, especially being a relative of Captain John Parker, which his statue is right across the street there. Sure. Yeah. I mean, is that a great feeling to know that your cousin or uncle, whoever he is, stood against tyranny? Yeah,
definitely, for sure. Because I'm glad that my parents taught me about this whole thing that I was tied, and I really didn't, back in years ago in the 70s and 80s, I said, yeah, that's a wonderful story. But now I see and feel it. I'm like, stand your ground means a lot right now. And then doing the bridge as well. So being related to those people too. And John Adams is my ancestor, and George Washington is my cousin. So there's a lot of history there. So yeah, it's just accident by birth, and my parents got together, and so that's the way it is. So
Edmund Burke quoted, "Those who don't know history are doomed to repeat it." And obviously, you know history and all that, but what the mainstream media is doing is they're erasing history. And do you fear that hopefully it doesn't happen someday? But do you fear our history would have to repeat it someday?
I sure as hell hope not. Yeah, I fear that it, but you know, I mean, you mentioned that they don't want the history to repeat. I mean, they want to get rid of, like, the monument. I mean, if they got rid of that, I mean, this is what they talked about when after the battle, after they killed 8 of their townspeople. You know, this monument is erected by the inhabitants of Lexington under the patronage and at the expense of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, to the memory of their fellow citizens, Ensign Robert Monroe and Messengers Jonas Parker, Samuel Hadley, Jonathan Harrington Jr., Isaac Muzzy, Caleb Harrington, and John Brown of Lexington, and Asahel Porter of Woburn, who fell on the field, the first victims of the sword of British tyranny and oppression, on the morning of the ever-memorable 19th of April, Andom, which is Latin for in the year of our Lord, 1775. I don't hear that said that much either anymore, in the year of our Lord, but that's what it's all about.
Political correctness today, you know?
Right. I mean, teach the people that, you know, these guys out here, what they were saying was no king but King Jesus.
Amen.
You know, so resistance to tyrants is obedience to God, and that's what they are all about. So
Thomas Jefferson that said that, and I want to thank you for your time, and sir. And what's your name one more time?
It's Al Van Wert. Yeah.
And it's a pleasure meeting you, sir. And yeah, God bless.
All right.
Yep.
Same to you. God bless. Thanks.
Defending liberty in the spirit of 1776. It's Dan Bidondi on TruthRadioShow.com.